Good day, family. Much love. We're going to be talking about shadows and light. Um, the different aspects or attributes of the whole. Because we always see ourselves separate. And it can be difficult to see. Can you hear me well so I don't have to project my voice too much? Can you hear me good? Charlie, can you hear me really well from here? I don't see a response. All right, I hope that everyone can hear me well. We're going to be talking about shadows and light, and the different aspects and attributes of the whole. Because you know, when we look at nature, we can see ourselves better. We get glimpses of ourselves. So sometimes you might wake up and say, I don't feel 100%. And I think of the moon. This is fractal, okay? We're gonna take a closer look. I'm gonna have to move. We're gonna take a closer look at the different parts of a whole that we're looking at all the time. So we have the sun and the moon. We have the yin and the yang. And that part is obvious, right? So that's the norm that we're paying attention to when we're looking at how we can emulate the aspects of nature. So you got the sun. Good day, beloved. We're talking about fractals and different aspects and attributes of the whole. So as we have the sun, we see how that played out in actual life, how we've already done this, how this is more like the way that our ancient way of thinking, and ways to take a symbol and roll in a lot more information into it. But it would depend on the mentality and the cultural foundation of the person who's learning. Like, you know, we learned information by word of mouth, you know, so you had your tribal stories. So something in one tribe might be more common than in another tribe, you know. But the symbolism didn't change too much. But over time it did morph, just like the stories, right? So you have the sun. And then you have the sun. The sun has rays, and those rays have attributes, and we've already been over this, how the sun is actually information. It's a light code frequency, and it breaks down into different portions, hence the rays, right? And how these colors break down into the chakra system, how there's lower forms of light and higher forms of light, and these different colors as light vibrate at different frequencies. So maybe somebody's feeling red, they're vibrating at a lower frequency. Or if someone else is feeling purple or even fuchsia, they're vibrating at a higher frequency, more toward the white light, more toward a cleansing frequency. So when we say the sun, anything birthed under the sun is an attribute of the sun. Just like they say the black woman is the originator that birthed all the other life forms on the earth, not life forms of people on the earth. Like everything comes from the essence of the nothingness, which is not nothing, it's something. So within black, within the night space, within the vastness, within the chaos, there's also the material, the prima material, right? In order to make something that's productive. So we have this pole. So it's right in front of our face. We have the sun, and then we have the moon, which is a reflection of the sun. And the moon also has its rays, its shadows. So we see the rays of the sun breaking down into attributes that are nurturing. We get our plant life, which we eat, and that gives our DNA code information. So the light is broken down in every aspect when you look at this fractal. Whether it's the information we get from the sun or the information we get from the sun, say the birds ate the bounty of the sun. They ate worms, they ate fruits, they ate vegetation, right? So I'm sitting here learning from the birds. I'm getting the download secondhand via that the birds got directly from their nature from the sun. So they're being whatever they are, having ingested the different rays, the different vibrational frequencies of the sun in the same way that I did. So we all got the sun. But we got the sun in the way that we could experience it through our own interaction with the Creator, based on who we are, whatever creature, humans being different from animals. So we have this sun, and then we have this moon, which is a reflection of the sun. We have the shadow. We have shadows and light, right? So there was a time when I wanted to run away from my shadow. And then I realized that as big as my shadow was, the attributes of light that I had within myself were even stronger if I would just hone in on them, you know? Started to look at shadows and the attributes of shadows and the different variations in the same way that I just did light. So we have our dark side. We have our shadow work. We have our hidden things, our hidden realms. We have our shade, somebody throwing shade on you, or you on someone else. Or sometimes shade is something that you need when the sun is too strong. It could blast you when it's purging and you ain't ready for all that heat, you know, or the, you know, the predicament is not applicable to the situation. You know what I'm saying? You don't want to be in the desert with no water. Then the sun might not feel so good, you know. But on a cool day, the sun might feel fabulous. It kind of reminds me of how sometimes certain people are good when they come around at certain times, but not at others. like in your parent when it's time for dinner, you know, or you need their advice on a situation, but not when you're trying to act out, or you're in the club, or you're talking to your girl. That's like not the time that you want to see your parents, you know, show up when you have on your other face, you know what I'm saying, that you wouldn't normally show your parents. But looking at my shadow self, even that way of thinking is kind of dark and kind of unknowing, from a space of unknowingness, because we can't hide from ourselves. And if all is self and we're part of the creator, we're certainly not hiding from the creator. So it's all about my personal relationship and how I want that to feel to me, shadow or light, right? The moon or the sun. So we have the vastness in the moon, and we have the female attributes, you know, of this water, of the abyss. And in the same way that the sun could be burning and purging, right, can scorch. And the same way that we look at shadow as this mysterious thing of hardship, you know, shade and shadow, just like the color red. You know, there's a lot of programming. You think 911 instead of apples and beautiful sunsets and strawberries, you know, and flowers. So part of the hidden realms, part of the unseen things, is realizing that we need to deprogram ourselves away from the normal way that we look at these words and these colors, these situations. And so that's what I was doing with shadows and light, the different attributes of shadow and light. So this is like the part where we get to say, to no avail did what they do work, because we're still, even though we're still decoding and unraveling a lot of things that were done to us, because we're still waking up out of this spell with this language that we're decoding. Evil, Avel. I was using this for a bookmark. So we like to look at the attributes of light in a fond way, right? And so we say the sun and the sun, but even that was elusive, blinded us to the truth as to the attributes of the sun and where the sun really came from, when we see the code, when we look at the Bible and how the sun, how the Christ, how Jesus, how Jesus is portrayed. Like, they don't want you to look at the darker attributes of light. But we live in a world that deals with polars. So wherever there's one, there's the other. And it's in the knowing that is the pole. That's the choice. The options to do one or the other. And when they we got cut off there for a minute. The technology is to withhold information, hence all the control that they're doing, trying to keep the information where it looks like, you know, it's addictive to always feel like you're the one on top of things. That's an illusion. That's getting into the other part. That's an illusion to mirror. Okay, we're back. It's an illusion to mirror someone else's culture. They're hereditary, right? And claim it as your own, and then tell them that they didn't achieve any of that. Eventually, it's going to come out in the blood in the same way that it comes out in their nature, you know? Like we carry in our the voice of our ancestors in our blood. There's different variations of light. And seeing how we come from light, or we come from nature, from the nectar, it's all up in your blood, all up in your consonants, all up in your being, right? It's who you are. You're fire, water, earth, air, and ether. You're the Phi. You still the Phi. No matter where you are on that zodiac, you still have 2 legs, 2 arms, and a head. So we have this mirroring going on, and this inversion going on. And we're very taken advantage of as a whole, because we weren't subjected to any of this in school. We weren't taught this. I mean, we see the rules of this mirroring thing being played out all over us when you're in a classroom, and part of the classroom is taught to be submissive due to the textbook information, and the other part of the classroom is taught to be domineering, to be in control, to feel like they can achieve all things. When you're looking at a book, because we know about the images, so that's where this stuff is fractal. And had to teach all the other stuff, and we had to Okay, we're back. Interrupted again. In that classroom is like a Peachtree dish. Okay, it's a controlled environment. And there's tools within that environment. You have the lighting. Okay, the lights have an effect. The consonance of the teacher has an effect, as if they actually want to be there, if they actually love the students, how they engage with the students, and their personal background and how they interact with people, their religious upbringing, their spiritual consonance, all that stuff, the baggage, the programming, we bring it with us. And for 5 days out of the week, they have those children in that controlled environment, and they have these tools. In the same way that I'm using the tools, the things that our Creator, fire, water, earth, We're getting interrupted a lot. And the same way that I take the downloads that our Creator gave to me and I put them in these books, right? And upload it back to you as a way to deprogram and to inform us through the connection that we're supposed to have. Other people within their cultures, within their intentions as a group, because they are doing group thinking, whereas we're just starting to get to this thing where we want to deliberately, as a group, do this thing a little different, figuring out how to snap the pieces together as a collective. They're using the advantage of the classroom setting. So there's things that are going on there that are very it's a fractal. The programming, the indoctrination, the levels of it that are going on. So in the books that they're reading, you're seeing, and a lot of this is being confronted and changed right now as we speak, because each one teach one, and each of us born under the sun have our own disc to stand on and our own battle to fight. Some people it's vaccines, for some people it's educational reform, for some people it's the judicial system, for some people it's the medical. They're fighting big pharma. Some other people are doing the GMO thing. Some people don't like, did I say the vaccines already? Okay. Maybe you don't like the way hip-hop is being treated and you're reforming that. You're on this Jay-Z tip. Maybe, it's police reform. Maybe you're a feminist, or you want to reform the way that feminism or women or this whole thing is looked at in general, and you're finding new categories and new spaces. Maybe you're for the youth, or you're a youth trying to look at different ways that you can plug into the world around you. You don't like what you've seen done in the past. So all of us right now have these spaces where if you're called forth, you have your own personal battle. But yet and still, when we're standing next to each other, how we interact with each other, it does affect the next person, whether we realize it or not. And so, what I'm trying to say is, how we see each other matters. With that energy and the imagery, okay, that whole psychological thing that we go through where we read stuff, why would they be messing with it if it didn't matter? Why would you go to such lengths to scatter the senses? So we see things in this mirror, this mirage, right? This flipping. Everything is inverted and has an opposite, as we were stating with the sun and the moon thing. Men have attributes of women, and women have attributes of the male principle. Men have a womb space, a space where they cultivate stuff, where they hold things inside, where they grow things. A space of darkness where they contemplate. A space that's murky and sensitive. You can take a lot of these attributes, and the same way that we say, oh, he's acting like a bird nigga, and you want to be a Lion of Judah. We take the attributes that we want. You want to sting like a Scorpio? You want to fly like a phoenix? There's many things, that we can choose to have to deal with nature. Attributes, it's still all attributes of the sun, just like we are. This carbon being has been nurtured by the sun. We picked and choose what we want to put in our vessel, and this carbon body, and everything that we choose to put in our body and that we come into contact with has a frequency, it vibrates, it's giving us a message, it has a DNA code. Now, the tools that we come into contact with, that we're given to learn from, weren't suggesting that. But they were suggesting that a certain part of the population was El Fabuloso. We got statues, we got pictures of them in the book, there's historical facts. They kick the crap out of everybody, bada bing, bada boom. They're in charge of everything. And then we see ourselves within the media, within the medium, within that black glass that scattered our senses. We're not even paying attention to what we see right in front of our face, how fabulous we are, how much we've overcome, how we can even still have a smile on our face while breaking this programming, while having to interact with Stockholm Syndrome. You're not even allowed to talk about it. People start getting itchy fingers and uncomfortable when you confront them with the abuse that they've done. And that's why I equate the historical stuff that has happened to us to domestic violence, because we're treated as children or mates when you look at the sexual content of a lot of things that have happened. When you look at the traits, me having a background in studying psychology and behavioral modification and anthropology and sociology, and even with my own ways to be able to look at myself through addiction. Through how different addictions pan out. There's an array of everything. Some of it's food, some of it's alcohol, some of it's sex, some of it's talking, some of it's social media, right? Some of it's gossip. Some of us like watching fighting and World Star and porn, chocolate, makeup, looking pretty, likes even. So addiction is an energy. It's a life force. It's a fire. It wants to eat. Okay? It's a spirit. Part of the hidden realms that we have not been schooled on, that they have been using as a deferment to cast counterproductive energies on us, is our unawareness. That's the negativity, is the uninformed is the nigga, the one who doesn't know. The ignorance, that's nigga. Whereas you is naga, all knowing, right? Into a different space and time, even to access other realms. And to part of the brain being shut down, the information being pulled back, withheld, walking around looking like a clown, programmed in these environments. So, I want to show you this. You know, in our life, we have these spirits